Partners just said, hey, look, we're just going to make it really clear here. There's never going to be another partner. Well, if I get that good, you couldn't let me leave. Most roofers don't know how to repair slate.
Today I'm joined by John Chan from the Durable Slate Company, to being a key person that has made Durable the Rolls Royce of roofing projects.
We did the Red House, which is the House of Parliament down in Trinidad. We did this really cool slate roof down in Lima, Peru. We've 4 or 5 different presidential homes. You brand yourself correctly and you market yourself correctly, people will find out about you. A lot of times there's something unique about it. There's something difficult about it that nobody wants to tackle. In fact, I remember talking to a customer, I said, so where'd you get our name? He goes, well, oddly enough, from your competition.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Taylor Talks Trades. I'm your host, Jamie Taylor. Thank you for joining me today, and remember to hit subscribe so you can help us grow the channel and bring you more episodes like this. Today I'm joined by John Chan from the Durable Slate Company. He spoke about how he got into the roofing trade, to being a key person that has made Durable the Rolls Royce of roofing projects right across America. He also talks about training and how not all problems or projects can be solved in a textbook. It's how we adapt and overcome to the situation that matters. Let's get into the show. Hi John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
It's just a privilege to have you here all the way over from America. I'd love to say that it's the podcast only that brought you over, but I know you've been doing some business here and there's certain things going on what we'll get into. But first of all, I'd just like to go back to the start and ask you how you got into the trades.
Sure. So I was going to college, UCLA out in Los Angeles, and I lived in Ohio. So I would go home for the summers, and it was just a summer job for me. So during the summers, I would, clean up slate, cut slate, carry slate around. And one thing after another, I started installing. So I did, 3 years of summer work doing this. And then when I finished college, I finished with an economics business degree. And as I was doing the interviews, I wasn't really keen on what that looked like, the office politics, all of that. And I was thinking, my brother said, you should just come back and work here full time. I was just like, we could actually make something of this. So I did.
Yeah, nice. So was this your brother's company then that you were going and helping out with?
So there was another guy that actually started the company. He and my brother and another guy were partners.
Yeah.
And so it was actually kind of interesting when I came on board, because the other 2 partners just said, hey, look, we're just going to make it really clear here. There's never going to be another partner. So don't come in thinking that, and I said, oh, okay. But, you have to have trust in yourself. And I was thinking, well, if I get that good, you couldn't let me leave. It would be impossible, because I would be the biggest thorn in your side.
Yeah, irreplaceable.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. So, I always think that if you make yourself irreplaceable, you can do whatever you want. So that's kind of how it all started.
Yeah. So in those early stages, then it was very much almost like a labouring over the summers. And then, so when you got right in, what was the sort of the steps then? Is it an apprenticeship? Like how did it work?
Well, actually, how I went into the company was I started doing all of the books. So I was the treasurer,
Yeah.
and then I was also the purchasing agent. So when you buy at our company, it also means getting all the reclaimed slate. So I had to go out there and do all of the tear-offs. So
Right.
we would go around tearing off slate roofs for asphalt shingle companies to reclaim the slate. And the funny thing is, that's where I learned a lot about roofing, because I saw what roofs worked and what roofs failed and why. And, I would see, head laps getting stretched. I would see side laps incorrect. I would see certain flashings that worked and others that didn't. And I was just like, this is fascinating, So I really was able to see a lot just from all the tear-offs. I did all the tear-offs from 1989 to, gosh, 1993 or 4. So, I mean, I tore off a lot of roofs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was there ones that you were taking off that you thought that's actually a good one? So there was good ones, but they were they were out of warranty basically. They were
Yeah, we tore off a lot of really good roofs because, you know, most roofers don't know how to repair slate in the US. So they just tear them off and put shingles on.
yeah.
So we're tearing off perfectly good roofs, but they were already in contract with the
Yeah.
homeowner.
Yeah. And is it painful for you knowing that I know you love your slates? Is it painful knowing that they take that off and they put shingles on? Is that
I didn't really look at it that way. I just looked at it as we were acquiring
yeah, you're
good
getting the good
slates
slates, yeah.
that we could reuse. And there were a number of times we put new roofs on with these old
Yeah.
slates.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 And then what was the steps from there? So what was the advancements? What started to happen after that?
So, I started working on roofs also because, if there wasn't a tear off going on, I would work on roofs. And then after a little while, I started running production
Yeah.
because, we grew a lot.
Yeah.
When I first started, we had probably, I don't know, 10 people or so.
What, including you guys?
Yeah, including
Wow.
us. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a very small company. So
So
e-
everyone was probably doing a bit of everything really.
everything. Yeah.
And then it started to
Right.
expand.
Yeah. So, at that point, gosh, we've had about 30 or 40 people. And so we started to break everything up. How we do our business is a lot like what you were saying. We structure our business into something called an organizing board.
Yeah.
So there's 7 divisions within a company. And so division 7 is your executive division. So they get, all the licensing, all the permits. They make sure everything's legal, And then the idea is that divisions 1 through 6, it's kind of like a speed relay race.
Mm.
So division 1, they do all the hiring and they receive all the incoming calls.
Mm-hmm.
Once they get that call, they pass it off to division 2. Division 2 is the sales division. They grab it, call the customer, get the estimator out there, looks at it, sell the job, goes to division 3. Division 3 is our treasury division. They look at the job, make sure it can be done at that price, order all the materials, have it all set up. It goes to division 4. Division 4 is the production division. They look at the job, they see that all the materials is here, they schedule it, they send the crew out. Then you have division 5, which is our quality control. They train our guys, but they also go inspect every single job to make sure it's done perfect. If it's not done perfectly, it gets flunked, and then whoever did the job has to go fix it and get retrained on what they missed. And then it goes to division 6. Division 6 publicizes well done works. So it just goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 hands it off to 1. 6 goes, hey, do you have any friends that have a slate roof, a tile roof, whatever? Boom, 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 boom. So you want to just do that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as fast as possible.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It sounds similar to how I've built my business actually, because I was explaining it to you downstairs
Right.
and I was saying it comes in here and then it goes there, and it's not the divisions as such, it's just departments, I guess we would be saying,
But it's the same concept.
yeah.
That's actually why I brought that up, because when you were showing me, it's just like, oh, it's very structured, just like
Yeah.
ours. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there is there's a reason why things should be done in sequence.
Absolutely.
It makes it so much easier, and then once you got that sequence nailed down and you know that it works, then you share it with the homeowners or the clients, whoever you're working for, and you can say, we're going to take you through steps 1 through 6, and you'll be
Right.
happy at the end, and you'll probably recommend us. So
Exactly.
it's a good way to do business, and going forward, you started to scale up. At this point, I'm guessing you were doing good work, getting more referrals, recommendations. Who were you guys working for? Was it homeowners or was it more commercial type contracts?
In the beginning, it was almost all homeowners. And then we started working for some general contractors to do additions, new roofs, and whatnot. And I would say Probably around, I don't know, the mid 90s, we started to do some larger, more commercial type projects. So, like, we did the governor of Ohio, the state office,
Yeah.
or a residence, I should say. We did the new roof there, and it started to snowball. And then all of a sudden, we started doing work in a wider geographic zone. And so that's when I moved down to Cincinnati and I opened up that office because we were doing so much work down there.
Yeah, you in the pre-chat when we were having a chat about it. You told me about that, and there was a few different branches that you opened, but you just said it as if, well, I just went down and just opened up. Like, what was that process actually like? Was that a difficult thing to do, or did you just think we've already done it here? We can just go and replicate it here.
Well, it takes a certain mentality to do that. But that's what I love to do because there's nothing more interesting to me than to make something out of nothing. If
Yeah,
there's nothing there and you can put something there, it's like, this is really cool, you know? But it takes intention. You know, you go down there, you name what you want done. You have to, I call it name, want, get.
yeah,
So, you name it, you want, and you have to get it. And you have to set up a program on how you're going to do that. And so you just take that structure that we have and you just put it there and you just start hiring guys. And as you hire them, you've got to train them and then go, okay, well, this person's never sold before, but he could be a salesman.
mm,
All I've got to do is train him up. So I'm going to have to train him up on roofing first. He doesn't have to be a great roofer. He just has to understand some of the basics.
hmm,
And then you can take him and work on his communication skills. What do you do if I just start attacking you? What do you do if I just say, you're just way too expensive? So you just handle all those little rough edges and you go, okay, he's ready. I'm going to make him an estimator.
yeah,
Next person, you go, oh, well, this guy's really technically detailed. He would do well in our quality control. He would be a good guy to go and inspect jobs because he's so detail oriented. He would go, "Oh, that's a flunk," you know.
yeah.
So yeah, you just kind of do that, and you as you get people, you recognize what their skills are, and you put them in the right place, and then you let them run with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do these people need? Because I know you said they don't need to necessarily be expert roofers. You can train that. You can train the sales and the language and how to handle almost like objections. So, what are you looking for in these people to make sure that, because we all at Taylor Roofs we always say, if we get the right people on the bus, then we can get them in the right seats, and that sounds very similar to what your thought process is, what your philosophy is with that. So, what do they need?
Well, first of all, they need to be willing, okay? Because you've got guys that are willing, you've got guys that are totally defiant.
Yeah.
So you pull out those willing guys, and you also want to get good people,
Mm,
right? You don't want people that are like criminally minded or
mhm.
anybody like that. So if you get good people that are willing, you can just train them up. Some of them might be a little slow or whatever, but if you just keep your training in, you'll eventually wind up with a great person.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I think it's something that I've become more and more sort of familiar with over the years, is that sometimes the best roofer isn't the best person.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's a shame to say. And then like I've got a coach football as well. My
Mhm.
son's under 13s team, and I've had previous teams in the past as well when I was into football. And sometimes the best player isn't the best teammate either. And
Right.
sometimes they've got, I guess, almost like this superstar mentality, or
Mhm.
like that we'd call like maybe like a diva or whatever.
Right.
So I get that. And I appreciate that it's a good way to think, because there's so many people that are just, they're the right person, but they've just maybe not found the exact right skill set yet. So it's given me a bit of food for thought as we are going through the journey of having we're just always running out of people, I guess.
Right.
Because
Yes.
we're ambitious and you want to grow and you want to bring more people in, but you always probably look for the same pool of people
Mhm.
because you're almost like, right, where's the roofers or where's the people who's all maybe at other roofing companies, but you get to a point where you just need the right people and the right training. So training's massive.
Yeah, training's key, and that way you can mold somebody, So you talk about these divas. Well, sometimes you hire them and you try and mold them so that they can be a proper teammate within your company. Sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. We've actually let go some of the best roofers we've ever had because they can't work within a team. They're always off on their own doing their own thing,
Yeah.
and what happens then is it destroys the team. So you've got to get rid of those people.
Yeah. They always say the your best employees will leave if you tolerate the bad ones, or it's actually it's a better saying than that, but I've not got it to I've not got it to mind.
Right.
And then things were growing. You've opened the other office in Cincinnati at this
Mhm.
point. Are you going between the two then at this?
At that point, I would go to Columbus every Monday for the Monday meetings.
Yeah,
So I would be in Columbus every Monday, and then I'd be just running everything. So it took work. A lot of times I'd be doing administrative work in the evenings and on the weekends. So it was trying to start a company from scratch, especially in a city like Cincinnati where there's really well established old roofing companies,
yeah,
to come in and reframe people's minds to come to use you. That takes effort. And so, yeah, I mean, we grew it from, two guys from Columbus moved down to Cincinnati, started. And, when I left Cincinnati, I think we're up to 29 people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And what was the so? Did you open another branch?
Yeah, after that, I moved to New Orleans. After New Orleans, I moved to Maryland.
Yeah.
So the office in Maryland is halfway in between Baltimore and DC because both those markets are really great markets.
Mm.
So we put it right in the middle.
So did you get quite? Was the Cincinnati one strategic, or did it start to become more strategic later when you thought, I've done this, it works. Now I'm going to think of the next best location.
Well, you know, um, after Cincinnati, we decided on New Orleans because we're looking for a southern office
Mhm.
where we could work when it's warm. Because in Ohio we get lots of snow, or
Yeah.
we can.
Mm.
So that was the idea there. And then what happened was they got Hurricane Katrina, and it just blew up where we're just inundated with calls. I mean, we were getting way more calls than we could possibly estimate. We had at one time like 800 estimate calls in the backlog because they're just coming in
Yeah.
one after another.
We had a storm this year and it was similar to that. It was like
Yeah,
1,000 calls over 4 days or something. And then
right.
we started turning the marketing off. We were like, we can't actually take any more calls.
Yeah.
And then we were starting to miss people as well. So we
Mhm.
were trying to capture everything and try to get out everyone. But it's not as common here, I don't think. Like we do get storms every now and again, and it
Mhm.
can be quite bad. But I don't think the level of what you guys get it, actually tearing the roofs right off sometimes as well, isn't it?
Sure,
Yeah.
hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that, they'll rip a roof completely off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keep you busy anyway.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, it's probably a wee bit more kind of business related, but how are you then? You're opening these other locations. Like, how are you funding them? Is the model sort of self funding, or are you having to go and try and get funds from somewhere to make this stuff happen? It must be a lot of pressure you're under to make it start to pay as well.
Well, we've always kind of started everything off of a shoestring. We just go down there. You don't need anything elaborate to start. You just need a small office, a brake, to bend up sheet metal, some basic tools,
Yeah,
and you can start. So we don't usually start off with anything big. I remember we hired this guy that was very seasoned in the slate industry, and it was in the Maryland office, and we hired him, and he came to our office. He's like, "Wow," he goes, "You've got like just a break here." I was like, "Yeah, what else do you need?" He goes, "Well, I figured Durable would come in with this big fancy big office and trucks and all kinds of shears." And I was like, you don't need that. I'm
Yeah.
like, you just come in and start doing basic work, and then all that,
It build itself up like
exactly.
you did the first time round, really.
Right.
That makes
Exactly.
sense. It
Yeah.
makes sense. And then, am I missing anything in between there, or like where are we at? Like where does the journey go from here? I know there'll be a lot over the years, but what brings us up to sort of current times? Is there, or am I missing anything there?
Well, everything came in small gradients. Durable was started in 1986, so we've been around for, gosh, 39 years. So it's just, small little things one after another, and you do great work and you publicize it, and other people will know about it. Because people ask me, it's like, how do you get work all over the country? Do you advertise? I was like, of course not. I'm like, how do you advertise in Montana or
Yeah.
California or wherever? I was just like, but if you brand yourself correctly and you market yourself correctly, people will find out about you.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I mean, people from all over the country they'll start calling you. I heard you guys are the people to do my type of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your main clients? Are you still in the homeowner space, or is it more like some of the projects I've seen, which I will ask you about what maybe your favorite one's been, but
Yeah.
some of these projects are like serious.
Yeah,
So is that like the government and stuff that you're working
it's
for
it's
there, or?
it's very wide. It goes from homeowners to churches and universities to government.
Yeah.
And what I like to say is that we do everything with slate, clay tile, or sheet metal.
Yeah.
And when I say sheet metal, I mean your old historic metals, copper, lead coated copper, zinc,
Mhm.
steel, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, so anything that encompasses that. And then we also started doing historic restoration work. So durable restoration also does historic masonry, windows, doors, and things like that. But it's very limited in that historic space.
Yeah.
So it's everything in between, and a lot of the work that we do around the country that's away from our offices, a lot of times there's something unique about it. There's something difficult about it that nobody wants to tackle, and that's what we're really known for is those difficult projects that they're just like, "Oof." In fact, I remember talking to a customer. I said, "So where'd you get our name?" He goes, "Well, oddly enough, from your competition." I said, "Yeah, how's that?" He goes, "Well, I called a guy, local guy here, told him what I was going to do. He said, yeah, he wanted to do it. I sent him the blueprints, and never heard from him. Just totally ghosted me." He goes, and this one time I called him. I think he answered by mistake, and he was all fumbling. And I asked him, I was like, "Hey, do you want to do this or not?" He goes, "I would love to, but," he goes, "this is a durable project." He goes, "What does that mean?" He goes, "Have you ever heard of Durable Slate?" He goes, "No." He goes, "Where are they?" He goes, "I think they're out of Ohio." He goes, "Well, why would I have ever heard of them?" He goes, "This is their kind of project. It's like, it's so detailed and ornate and difficult." He's like, "I just can't do a job like that." And he goes, "Why didn't you just tell me?" He goes, "I was just kind of embarrassed." And so he calls the next guy. He goes, next guy says the exact same thing. He's like, he goes, "Yeah, sorry I didn't call you back." He goes, "This is kind of like a durable project." He goes, "A durable project?" He goes, "Yeah, there's a company called Durable Slate. They do jobs like this." He's like, "You've got these turrets, the copper is all decorative, you got sweeps in them." He goes, "I can't do jobs like this." And so, anyways, the guy, calls us, and we do it. But it's those kinds of projects. It's kind of like if you think of a firefighter, house is burning, everybody's running out, the firefighters are running in.
Yeah.
That's kind of like us, this crazy project. Everybody's like, "Oh, no, that's not for me." We're like, "Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, we can do that."
Yeah.
So we love those challenges.
And why are you the go-to guys for it then?
I think that we're the ones that look at it and find it exciting.
Yeah.
So we're the go-to guys because we're the guys that will do that.
Yeah.
You look at a project like the Norwegian embassy. You know, it's $5,000 a day penalty for going over. You have an extremely short window of time. It's incredibly difficult because it's pre-patinaed copper and it's curved and then it goes up a wall and then it goes curved again, goes in the back. There's these built-in gutters and everything's got to look perfect. So you can't have streaky solder marks. So you're gonna have to use European folds, which most American companies don't know how to do.
Mm.
It's 1 block away from the vice president's house, so there's no cell service there. If you want to call the office, there's something missing, you've got to leave the job site, go the opposite direction about 4 blocks, and then your cell phone will work.
Wow.
And it was such a tight space. They had all these different contractors there. So, most people looked at it like, there's no way. But, if you bid it correctly and run it tight, you can get the job done. And we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And so with these ones, I always think, I've seen some of these really complex, difficult projects, like logistically, but just the actual workmanship as well is technically difficult. Sometimes you might see these projects that they could go and win an award, or it's like plastered everywhere. But like, did you manage to actually like make money on that job?
Yeah. That's the funny thing. That's what's key, because if you don't make money, well, you'll go bankrupt.
Yeah.
You know,
Because that's always been my fear. Some of those projects do come in, and I think, I'd be quite up for that. But then I'm like, we've also got a very easy sort of bread and butter stuff where we know it's profitable, and it's just sometimes those projects would be a risk, and sometimes it's an ego thing or almost a bit of ambition to go, you'd win an award if you do this job and you get it right. But it's just sometimes that we risk to take it.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to take those jobs that are going to put you under, put you down. We had a project recently where, they were ready to award a very large project to us, well over $1 million. And they wanted us to sign their contract, their general contractor. And, we redlined it and said, you have to change these things. He said, no, we're not going to change it. We're not going to sign it. And they're like, this will be a big project that's going to be an award-winning project. Everybody's going to know about you. I said, everybody already knows about us. So, either change it or we're not signing it. And they just walked away, and we walked away. Yeah,
it's a good way to do business.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people can get caught up in that, or contractors, can get caught up in that, and it's it can be a scary place, I guess.
Yeah, they see those big dollar signs and they're chasing that big dollar sign. And it's like, don't do that.
Yeah, because like you said, if this is a project that's over £1 million, like what if it takes 1,100,000 to deliver it? You're like, was that worth it?
It's not worth it.
A lot of pain. What's been your favorite project then?
A lot of people have asked me that. There's so many really interesting projects, and that they're so interesting for so many different reasons. Like, we did the Red House, which is the House of Parliament down in Trinidad. We did this really cool slate roof down in Lima, Peru. We've done, I'm trying to think, I think it's like 4 or 5 different presidential homes. We did this house in Missouri that was 70,000 square feet. There was an elevator from the basement to the top floor. They've got a wine cellar that's 5,700 square feet. I mean, it was a 5-color blend of 3/4-inch slate. So you've got to blend all the slate. Then you've got about 30,000 pounds of lead-coated copper, over 1,000 feet of gutter. So it was really difficult because, some of those surfaces were round. So you had radius surfaces, and, when you look at that, I think a lot of companies are like, wow, there's no way, But, that was a really interesting job because it had to be set up an exact way to get done in a timely manner. So you get a lot of interesting jobs, and it's hard to pick one that is the one. And we did one recently. It was Twin Towers in Montana. And, you can't build scaffold off the roof of the church because you'd be liable for it.
Yeah.
So we had to come up with this whole way of setting it up. of putting I-beams through. And so we had to go from one scaffold company to another, and one engineering firm. Because at first they were all saying, yeah, it can't be done. We're like, yeah, it can be done. You just have to engineer it. So let's do it. And then finally we found an engineering firm, said, well, we could do it this way. And then a scaffolding company said, well, yeah, we could build it off this way. This would work. I'm like, great, let's do it.
Yeah.
But, in the US, you need a structural engineer to stamp that
Yeah.
because you can't just put that up.
Yeah, or you'd be in big trouble if something goes wrong, for sure.
Right, yeah.
Wow. So you're not giving us a favourite project then, is basically what you're saying.
I've got way too many. There's so many I love.
It's almost 40 years worth as well, isn't it? So,
exactly.
So you've mentioned slating, copper. What's your favourite? Do you prefer to mix them all and it's all in one project, or are you more inclined to, like, are you got a preference on the roof covering?
I don't really have a preference. We like to put the best roof on that particular structure. And it could be because of the architectural design. It could be of where it's situated. And, there's also times where you have to change something, but you have to keep the historic integrity. Like we did this church in Roanoke, Virginia, and these steeples were, I believe they're 150 feet tall, but the church was on a big hill. So the wind that occurred there, you had to take all that into account. And that was the problem. What happened is, even though it had Buckingham slate, which lasts for 300 years or more, it's the best slate in the U.S. The copper was failing, and the copper wasn't failing because of anything like getting holes in it. It was all the wind. The wind was twisting the louvers, the crosses, and everything. It was cracking all the solder. So a little bit of water would get in, and then you get termites, and all of a sudden the two towers started leaning. So what we did was we cut the towers off, had them rebuilt, put structural steel down into the steeples, and put the towers back on. And then we reslated them. But what we did was with the copper is, instead of using 16-ounce copper, we used 40-ounce copper. And instead of soldering it, we welded them. And then the crosses, instead of being wood, we made them out of stainless steel and wrapped them in copper, 40-ounce, and welded. So, now when the wind blows, it doesn't twist it and cause problems and cause leaks. So you have to look at a project like, okay, why is it failing?
Mm-hmm.
How do we fix that? Is it just because, well, the slate's old? Is it, is it a bad install? Or was it some kind of weather condition that caused it that they weren't thinking of? Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. There's not many companies that would go into that detail.
Yeah.
So I can see why people say that's a durable project.
Right. We just did one for the state of Maryland, and it's the Treasury building right next to the State House. We did the State House, and they're like, oh, you guys got to do the Treasury building. Well, what happened was, it was originally a wood roof, and the wood roof went bad, and they put a tile roof on, a clay tile that mimicked wood.
Yeah.
So when they wanted to redo it, they're like, we have to go back with the wood. And we're like, well, the wood's going to last like 20 years and you got to tear it off. And they're like, no, we want wood that's going to last, for a long time. And I'm like, the only way you can do that is, old growth. And after we got into it, what we managed to do is we got old growth wood dredged out of the Chesapeake Bay. It was sawn into the original size, and then we dipped them or soaked them in a special linseed oil blend that would impregnate the wood. And so you've got these old wood shingles that will actually last, but the amount of expense that went into it was kind of crazy.
And all these projects you're talking about as well, it's are the clients just putting the trust into you, and then like, because how would you even estimate that? How would you begin to the last project you spoke about as well, where you're like redesigning the crosses and things as well?
Well,
How do you then price for the job, and then you say this bit there's a contingency or some sort of
right. So it depends on how the project comes across. So
mm,
sometimes they're specified
yeah
and you bid it exactly how it's
mm,
specified. And then you put an addendum in saying, we feel like you should do this, this, and this. And if you do this, the cost will be X.
yes
And so a lot of times people ask, well, the architect didn't specify that. Why do you want to do that? And we tell them, and they're like, well, that makes sense. Okay, let's do it.
yeah
Yeah.
and do you find that in America that these people listen to that advice? Because I know that in the UK, a lot of the time, it can just be like a race to the bottom for the price, and you know, a certain contractor will allow, with all their experience, allow, although the architect has said this, it's going to turn out this way, so they allow for that, but then they lose the job, and this one wins it, and then there just ends up being like an extra. You know, that this contractor actually, the cheaper one actually ends up being much more expensive and extras, whereas this one would have allowed for it and it would have been okay. Does that get listened to, or is it just
It's the same in the US. And basically, the way we look at it is that's not our customer.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. Definitely. I'd like to touch a wee bit more on the training.
Hmm.
So I sort of see a lot of this as being like chicken and egg scenario. It's like if you want to take on these amazing projects, but if you don't have the people, but then if you if you've got the people and then you've not got the project, it's almost like this chicken and egg thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
So like how is the I know you started in that space, so you would have you just always trained from the
Yeah.
beginning onwards?
From
So
the beginning.
you've never missed the
No.
boat. Whereas I feel like here in Scotland and in the UK, there's like this, I don't know if it's like 20 years span where people just weren't getting trained properly, and it felt like they just ran away to like house building sites and just did that one kind of um, sort of skill, and then the heritage stuff kind of got lost somewhere. I don't
Mhm.
know, but I guess what I'm trying to say is if for example we wanted to go and do these historic projects, how do you do it? Because if you've not got the people,
Well, that's the interesting thing. I feel like the training here in Scotland and actually all over Europe is much more advanced than what it is in the United States. We're kind of the anomaly. We do our in-house training. So, here you've got Edinburgh College, which will train slaters and tilers, and in Germany they've got all their schools.
yeah,
So we don't have that in the U.S. It would be great to have them, but we don't. So we do our own in-house training. So, um, gosh, long time ago, I wrote a lot of courses. How do you identify a clay tile? How do you repair a slate? How do you flash a chimney? All these different courses. And so they would study them in a course room, and then we would have mock roofs, just like you have out
yeah,
back. And the person would have to do this on the ground, and then he'd get signed off on, and then he could do that. Um, More recently, I think we're probably going to switch to video because I think the attention spans are a little different. So, I'm going to try and head that up and start making videos and, short, simple videos that somebody can follow. Because basically, if you can do that and each little video, they can learn it at a gradient step that they can understand. If you make it too big, it's too cumbersome.
yeah. I think now people are scared to start a longer video,
Yeah.
especially the younger generation. We spoke about this pre-chat as well, before we came on air, but at TikTok, people are just scrolling
Yeah.
fast, and it's trying to meet them where they are, I guess.
Mhm.
Because I even notice it if I'm going to watch a podcast, for example, and I see that it's maybe an hour and 18 minutes, I'm like, mm, I'll need to set some time aside for that.
Right.
Whereas you probably then go to your phone and scroll for an hour and 18 minutes
Yeah,
anyway.
right.
But it's just, it's there is something happening with attention spans. I think it's to do with dopamine really, and just wanting that quick hit of the next video, the next thing. And I guess it's probably, it is the younger generation that's coming through as well. You need to find a way how to
Sure.
teach them.
Yeah, as generations switch and whatnot, and trends change, you kind of have to roll with the punches,
Yeah.
And that's one thing I say that in life, nothing really happens like a textbook, and you've got to be able to just roll with the punches. So if something like rough or tragic or bad happens, you kind of have to just sit there for a second and go, okay, don't react. This is where we're at right now. What's the best possible outcome that we could get from it? Okay, so it's over here. Okay, so what steps do I need to get from here to there? Okay, so let's do that. What happens most of the time is somebody goes, oh my gosh, and they do something rash, and it makes the problem 10 times worse. So, you see it in like film, movies, something happens and then all of a sudden they end up killing somebody because they're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's too big of a problem. And now they're a murderer.
Yeah, yeah. That's quite an extreme example, but it's very true. I think with them, it makes a lot of sense. I think it's the being able to adapt to what's happening rather than saying this training isn't suiting these people anymore. Those people aren't right. It's just there's a new generation coming in. How do we adapt and fix a model that is just going to bring through, in our instance, like the best roofers that can possibly be? Like, we can't just accept that now there can't be roofers unless they're just this set way, I guess. It's a difficult problem. The one of the training people. I think the issue that we sometimes have with it is a lot of people don't train.
Yeah.
So we try to do the in-house stuff like what you mentioned, and we're not we're good at it, or we're okay at it. We're not amazing at it, and I'd love us to be amazing at it, but we really struggle to say there's a training budget for the year,
Mhm.
a percentage of our revenue, there's a training budget, because things are so tight. We're competing against people who don't care.
Right.
The industry's not regulated. So someone can go and buy a van next week, set of ladders on it, some tools, go and chap a door and say, you've got some slates off there. Do you want me to fix them? Person says yes. They're now earning money being a roofer, and they're not a roofer, which is devastating, to be honest, for
Mhm.
people who want to do the job right. Roofing contractors who want to see things done the right way, done right the first time, all of this stuff. So you're sort of, that's probably something I'm trying to find a solution to, like you said.
Right.
And I'm not going straight to the somebody needs murdered scenario. I'm just
Right.
I'm sitting with it and saying, what, we are here, we need to get here. What is those steps? And I feel like I've been sitting on it for quite a while, but I think it's because I want to get it right. I have seen people starting like training academies and just not getting the funding, it no working out, and I just don't want to be that. I want to find a way that it's almost commercially viable as well, but it's going to help.
Mhm.
But I think it's a big problem.
Sure. It's kind of the chicken or the egg, it's like, how do you fund that so that it's rolling, but also other companies don't. So there's a race to the bottom as far as price. And, I remember somebody asked me, he goes, well, what if you train all these guys and they leave? I'm like, sure, that's a problem. But a bigger problem is, what if you don't train them and they stay?
Yeah,
So,
that's very
you've
true.
got that issue.
It's very true. And sometimes you've just got to be, I think this is where, in order to be successful, you need to do what's right for the industry sometimes a bit as well. And it can be difficult, but I know that there's times we're putting apprentices through, and I know they're going to leave because a statistic of how many stay and how many leave, and
Mhm.
you're not going to keep them all. So sometimes you've just got to say, well, at least I'm doing my bit. And I guess if more and more trades companies or roofing contractors do that same thing, then at least there will be roofers in the industry,
Yeah.
at least. But it's very tough. But I think I was saying when we were out at the roofing rig out the back, and I was saying, we just love to do it on a bigger scale, but it is just funding it. It's very difficult, and I think as well, it maybe depends on who you're working for, but do the clients really care as well? Like, would they be happy to pay, say, 10% more so that you could just train your staff? Probably not. They probably just say, well, that's your problem. Like, we want that 10% cut off, whatever it would may be. So,
Well, it depends on what you want to do, and you can be successful at whatever level. So, think of cars. Do you want to be at the low end? I'm not sure what a low end car is here in the U.S., but like back in the old days, like a Yugo.
yeah.
Do you want to be that, or do you want to be a Chevrolet or a Ford, or do you want to be a BMW, or do you want to be a Rolls Royce? And each one of them have their niche.
Mm.
You just have to market and brand yourself so that you fit into that niche and you capture that entire market. So if you're the guy that's doing lots of work like Ford, GM, where you're just massive cars, massive roofs, you don't have to be the best, and you don't want that nightmare project. You just stay away from it. But if you're Rolls Royce, yeah, well, I don't want all these jobs. I want that job. I want that job because this guy's going to pay whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And that's another funny thing that people have asked me, like, how do you get these jobs and whatnot? One guy said, I just have to ask you. He was like, I've run up against you 3 times. 3 times I've been way lower, and all 3 times you got the job at way higher rate. What do you tell them, those people? And I said, well, it's not necessarily what I tell them. They want a certain product, and that's what Durable is. That's what we deliver. They're not looking for GM. They're not looking for even a BMW. They want the Rolls Royce.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's other customers of ours that we're the only bid. I mean, we've done roofing jobs that are $3 million, $5 million, uncontested.
Wow.
We don't need another bid. We need Durable. That's it.
How good is that?
Yeah. So, but, if you brand yourself the
Yeah.
right way and just pick certain projects that you do, because we've been asked, hey, can you do this for 20% less, 5% less? No, we're not your company. This other company is your company.
And that's your reward for the investment in the training and the quality.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and through time it will come. So when I'm talking about how do you fund maybe the training element, it's like you take the risk probably, and then in 5-10 years when nobody else has trained anyone and they don't have anyone, then
You've got the
you're
guys.
clearing up. That was
Yeah.
what you would think anyway. But then I guess everyone in the market then just finds a way. How do they'll just pay more, try and steal the guys and
Right.
stuff. It's just like you said, it's nothing's textbook.
Right. Exactly.
So you just pick a lane, you sort of stay in it, you go for it. Something happens, you have to change lane. You change lane, you adapt, and you move on. Something that I took a wee note of, because I was on your website, and there was one of your guys, and this kind of a couple of things stuck with me. But so he was an artist, and then he became a roofer, and he called himself a slate mechanic, which I just thought was quite interesting, because here you're just a roof slater or a roof tiler. So that just stuck with me a bit, because like I love roofing, I love the industry, I actually love business as well. Probably love business slightly more than I love roofing now. But it's close. But it was a reminder to think that, a way a lot of your people, they're spoken of as like artisans and artists, and that guy was saying this was his form of art. He left art school because he couldn't find anything when he was going to go and get a job.
Right.
So there's no really a question here. I guess I'm just bringing a sort of awareness to it, to say, like, remember how good roofing actually is.
Well, sure. If you think about, I know who you're talking about. He's an incredible painter. He sculpts. He does all kinds of very interesting things. Um, a lot of those people, when they leave art school and they try and make a living, it's a tough sled because you've got to find the guy that likes that style, not just anybody. I mean, it could be beautiful, but they've got to like that style enough to pay you for it.
Yeah.
And then you've got to find all those people, and they're like needles in a haystack.
Yeah.
And you could certainly pay somebody to publicize you, but where do you get the money? Right. So it's kind of a catch 22, and you've got to just be really lucky, no matter how good of an artist you are, that you can find somebody that's going to foot the initial bill.
Yeah.
And so, he started doing roofing with us, and he was just like, wow. He's like, I can make art on the roof,
Yeah.
and this is my art. So, it was kind of a win-win there.
It's another scenario of that right people in the right seats, and then get the right people on the bus and then put them in the right seats.
Right.
Like you said, he would have been willing,
Mhm.
and he obviously, he had that creative spark. So
Right.
it was just finding the right match for him. So no, I just thought I would mention it because I was doing a wee bit of research and I was checking your website out and different things, and I too often, like, roofing's just, it's just getting forgotten about how the heritage side, it just seems to be becoming less and less, and
Yeah.
all the new build housing now, it's just, it's almost pretty square. It's large format concrete tiles, and there's an art form in slating, really,
Yeah.
predominantly slating, that just, turrets and sweeping valleys and all of this stuff. And I just think, like, even some of the roofers that work for us, the young guys, they'll maybe never see it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm quite drawn to the heritage side. But again, it's very much like you said, we're probably set up for being almost like that sort of reliable, dependable, trusted business, sort of in that middle sort of ground. Like, I wouldn't say we're the Rolls Royce, if I'm honest, in
Right.
terms of we're maybe not taking on these big quality, intricate projects. Not to say we never will, but like we know what we do.
Right.
We've and it just came by default that when I did my apprenticeship, I was with a company who that's the lane they were in. So I just sort of mirrored that and copied. Whereas if I'd been with a heritage company, I probably would have mirrored the heritage and then followed that path. But no, it's just giving a shout out to roofing, really, and just the art that it is, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think we're sort of approaching the end. We've covered quite a lot of ground there. It's been interesting. So I'm just going to kind of do our last wee segment on what brought you to Scotland.
Well, my very first trip, I was here for the IFD, the International Federation of Roofing Contractors. We actually won the award that year for Project of the Year. It was I think it was a 275 copper steeple that was really, really intricate. And so I got to know Graham and Norma Miller. Graham was president of the IFD at the time, and so we'd see him here at conferences and whatnot. And Gary and I overheard him talking about how he was having some difficulties selling his company to his employees, and it'd fallen through twice, and he doesn't know how it's going to work out, and should he just close the company, or what should he do? And we're like, I wonder how much he wants for it. And so it piqued our interest, so we talked to Graham, and it took a long time. I mean, I think I want to say it was close to 2 years even before it was totally finalized. And so we had quite a few trips over here. So, I usually come over here about once every quarter.
Yeah.
I'll be back over here next month. So, we just come over here and there. So I've been to Scotland, gosh, I don't know how many times now, probably 10 or more.
And were you doing this beforehand then, before there was the interest in Graham's company, or?
No.
So that was when you first came over, was once you heard about that?
Well, like I said, the very first trip was for the IFD.
Yeah.
But after that, it was after we're like, well, let's see. Because even though it was interesting, it would have to work. So we would have to check out the market, check out his company, see, would it be worth it? Because what if you have this company that demands all this attention, but only makes this much profit?
Yeah.
Well, it's not worth it, right? And so we thought about, well, how about expansion? Can we expand through Scotland? Can we expand through the UK? Can we expand through Europe?
Yeah.
And, so there was all these different scenarios. And, do we want to get into masonry here?
Yeah.
Yes,
There's a gap.
Yeah, there's
Huge
a gap.
gap.
Yeah. So there's all these different questions, and how expensive is it? So we would just come over here and take a look at things, take a look at neighborhoods, take a look at people, talk to different people, talk to other roofing contractors. So it was really nice talking to you.
Yeah.
Just get a perspective of what it is you're walking into, and then at that point decide, okay, we go and purchase the company, or hey, this is not for us, right? Yeah.
When you were probably into such a long time as well, it'd be hard to pull out as well. I think if you're a year in and thinking, are we still going to do this? But no, it's great to have you over here.
Yeah, it's great
because
to meet you. Yeah.
just in general, like if you're going to do with Graham's company what you've done over in the States, then it's only good for roofing. It's only good for the projects that's over here. So we need more of people doing things right. I'd imagine you're going to try and train some people. So
yes,
so
absolutely.
just even adding that to it as well. So it's great. It's great for the industry. But I think that probably wraps us up. To be fair,
Oh, great.
It's been amazing having you on. A real privilege getting you over here, or catching you when you were over here.
Yeah.
But I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll stay in touch for sure.
Absolutely. Great meeting you.
If anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch?
We're on the web, www.durableslate.com, or my email, jchan@durableslate.com. I'm pretty easy to get. Yeah.
Good man. Thanks very much, John. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Well, guys, thank you for watching to the end of this episode. As always, remember to subscribe and leave a comment down below to let us know what you thought. I'll see you on the next one.